Everybody is going to be different, but in general, if you think about common things are common, which is why many of you will be falling into one of those habits, right? Common sense tells you what you need to do, but it's interesting how even though it's common sense, most people don't follow it. Why? I have no idea.
Behavior change, right?
Huh?
Behavior change.
It's behavior change, and it's also like habits, right? All human beings are creatures of habit. I kid you not. Some of you will, I'll give you an example. You're a creature of habit because I bet you that at least 5 days out of 7, if not 7 days out of 7, you have the same breakfast. No one ever changes that. And you go, why? Because you know what? On the day when you actually are living your routine and you don't have that breakfast, the day's not right for you. That's because actually human nature is that you like repeatability, you like comfort zones, and you don't need to think about something. So when you start out that way, you're living your lifestyle, your habits have actually come with you. And then when your habits have to change, that's where the hard work comes. That is really the reason why most people have difficulty changing things. Because the habit is what actually keeps you from doing something different. So let's talk about cardiovascular risk factor management. I bet if I asked you all what they are, you will all know the answer, right? Smoking, number one. You know, unfortunately, even now, 50% of people are still smokers. So you know it. Now, in the old days, you would say, you need to give it up, okay? Well, we've learned a lot more about addictions. And tobacco is an addiction. Actually, your brain gets used to that nicotine. So, whether you like it or not, you actually need to treat it like that if you happen to be a smoker. And then there are things that you can do to break that habit, because that's what you do, right? But smoking is really by far the most manipulable, preventable risk factor you can have. Things that you can change, but you can't always alter, right? You can't change your genetics. You're born the way you are born, in the family you're born, you bring with that the genetics that you have, you can't change that. But you can still, genetics does not determine what happens to you later on. You can change that too. Blood pressure, right? Smoking, blood pressure, diabetes. Obviously, hypertension and diabetes are acquired, but they're also preventable, but they're also manageable. You can't do much about genetics. Cholesterol and lipids. And it's not cholesterol, we'll come back to that in a minute, right? But that's also part of that management, right? Then the things that you absolutely neglect. Stress. I'm telling you, most of you don't even think about stress as being a major factor, but stress is a major factor, right? Sleep. Turns out, actually, good sleep hygiene is just as important. And many of you also don't get that. And what makes those things actually change? Alcohol. So alcohol per se doesn't give you heart disease, right? I mean, it gives you a certain kind of heart disease, but not the atherosclerotic kind that you're talking about with your heart attacks and your stroke, right? But alcohol impacts all the other things.
It impacts sleep.
Definitely impacts sleep. You have a nightcap. Ramana has a charge 5, and I bet you on his charge 5, he will know what his sleep pattern was overnight, right, compared to if he didn't drink. Everybody, it absolutely impacts it, right? But you forget that. Actually, alcohol also impacts blood pressure control. So it's an indirect thing. And these are known things. So you don't need a doctor to tell you about all of this. Why? You kind of all have heard this, right? So why is it that you still don't pay attention? Well, there's nothing special about being Asian. There are differences, but the risk factors that I just talked to you about, and there are others, I'm not going to go into all the minutiae because otherwise it'll take too long. They are all the same for everyone, but Asians actually get them at a slightly different level. So for example, the body mass index has been used as a way of looking at obesity, right? Everybody knows that. Okay, if you look at a white Caucasian where most of that data came from, right? BMI of 25 to 30 tells you that you're overweight, you're over 30, you're obese. That same number for Asians, and by the way, when I say Asians, I'm really talking about Southeast Asia, further out, Japan, China, all of that area. You look at people over there and they've done epidemiological studies. That same relationship still holds, except you're 2 points lower. So your overweight starts with a BMI of 23. So when you go in and you are an Asian and your BMI is 26 or 27 or 28, actually you're the equivalent of someone who's +2 on the white side. Now people have questioned BMI as a tool, it doesn't matter. Forget all that argument. That's just what academics figure out, right? But for you, if you're looking at that, so there's a very famous picture of two people. Actually, one is John Yudkin, and the other is, oh my God, this guy in Hyderabad. Dang it! He's I forget his name now, Indian guy.
Dang it.
He is a really, Yajnik. He's a really, really good diabetologist. He is thin, John Yudkin is thin, right? And they did MRIs on their own abdomens, right? It turns out that the white guy had less visceral fat than Chitranjan, right? Had less visceral fat. And they were making a point, because they used themselves as examples, that you've got visceral fat, which is more. Visceral fat is always the bad fat in your body, right? And it's the one that causes more inflammation. And he had more, even though he actually looked pretty thin, right? Now, because of his age and what he did, he had a little belly as well, right? That's the difference. So you are all susceptible to that. So you need to really put that into context. Don't assume that the risk factors for Asians are special. You are about as special as everybody else. Okay? You just need to actually make sure that you get it controlled. That's it. So when we talk about things, we just want that control. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, not type 1. Type 2 diabetes is preventable. What is that? That means that if you actually develop glucose intolerance and you do the right things, many of the clinical trials, science-based, obviously involve drugs or this and that. And so they have numbers like, in 5 years, 50% of the people never develop diabetes if they went on X, Y, or Z therapeutics, right? Bariatric surgery, you lose weight, you're losing all kinds of weight, all kinds of body fat. Your diabetes is essentially reversed, right? That works. But that's surgery. Actually, if you lose weight, turns out it's harder because of the habit that I was telling you about. But if you do, your diabetes improves. You actually come off insulin too if you happen to be a type 2 who's just been put on insulin and you lose weight. So you can do all of those things. Food that we didn't talk about is a massive, factor, right? Lots of people eat lots of processed foods. You can't help it. Stuff that's actually very tasty, the donuts that I also ate, right? It's enjoyable. But the thing is, it's the processed food. If you do it in moderation every now and again, it's fine. But it's whether you do that on a regular basis. Too much sugar. Sugar was never a thing. Never a thing until the beginning of the 19th century, right? And it was all because of the trade and the plantations, and then sugar literally became absolutely everywhere. Prior to that time, no one ate that much sugar. Like no one. You had sweeteners of some kind, but the level of sugar consumption is massive. Even now. Ask yourself, do you buy less than 1 bag of sugar for the entire year for your whole household? If you do buy more, that tells you one, you just got a lot of sugar in your diet. That you use.
By bag, you mean like a 5-pound bag?
It was like that 20 pound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but that's what I mean, right? Your diet has a lot of impact. And you really need to actually look at these things, the process.
So Shailesh, but you would say that, would you say that sugar is also an addiction?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything. I mean,
Sugar high, right?
habits, it's a habit, right? I mean, if you happen to be someone who made your cup of chai in the morning and you had sugar in it, that's how you like your tea. And that's how you're going to drink it, right? And the day you say, I'm going to have my tea without sugar, it doesn't quite taste the same as what you were using. Because your brain was used to it, right? So it is, you're going to have to break those cycles, right? Not easy because, okay, so hedonism, your brain likes to be happy about some of the things you do. Hedonism, right? And so when you eat chocolate and you go, oh, that is so good, because you're feeding your brain to be happy. And foods do make you happy. That's why they're called comfort foods. But think about all the comfort foods that you eat. The ones that really give you that pleasure are always fat rich, right? Or sugar rich, right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to be ones that, someone says, yeah, I'm eating bhaji. I mean, come on, and I'm really feeling great, right? Come on. No one does that. Well, maybe one or two, oh, Karela, yeah. All right? So that is part of the importance. Yeah.
I want to talk just to 5 seconds on the sugar. So yeah, I agree that sugar is bad. So I started on this Lakanto monk's fruit, bel pathar sugar. I don't know people in North know that. It's a East India fruit. Aspartame was part of that composition.
No,
and then I heard-
erythritol.
Huh?
Erythritol.
Erythritol. And
Yeah,
they
yeah,
said
yeah.
that's not good for you, so I had to
That
stop.
I quit that too.
Right?
Yeah.
So now my dietitian is saying, forget about sugar, go with this threaded mishri or go to gur,
Jaggery.
jaggery.
Okay. Yeah.
What
I mean,
just quit sugar or no? Are you sugar?
Really, of course, that's the goal, but I'm
It's so
saying
sweet,
until
no?
we reach that point, how do you satisfy yourself?
yeah, exactly. And how do you do it? So I think the answer is going to be in moderation, right? So what you have to do is do a little bit of the moderation first, right? And then you have to say, are there substitutes that are different? There is a problem though, in that if I try to give people advice about any of the foods, specifically except one or two, research into what a particular food is good or bad for you is actually very, very poor. And that's part of the problem. You really just can't do that research. Think about this. If I said fat is bad for you, right? You're going to have to say, show me which study that says fat is bad. Turns out, actually, there are no studies that